Hey guys, welcome back to another Take 5. This video is going to be about um, arrays. It's going to be a kind of a quick little video. If you're not familiar with arrays at all, I'm going to kind of explain it. If you're already familiar with arrays, you probably don't even need to hear this. But I just wanted to do this because I'm going to move into for loops and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of get arrays out of the way. There are other types of variables. So if you watched my variable videos, I didn't really go into detail about the different types of variables that you can. So there's different classes of variables, kind of, and then there's also different types. So, oops, do nothing. So right here we have an integer value that is basically a single integer value. And then this next one is an array of integers. An array is just like basically a container that can have multiple integer values, and it can be anything. You could do an array with any class, any variable. There can always be an array of that type. And so we could add, you know, 20 of these. We could add 100. We could have 2,000. Whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You can have that many. They can all be a different number. They can all be specific. And and arrays have the ability to do things like you can check to see if things are contained inside of the array. You can say, does this array contain the integer 5? And then what's going to happen is it's going to immediately go through all these and it's going to check to see if it has them. Does it contain it? And you would use that with like a branch, and there's a condition. You can do things like remove index. And you can say, I want to remove index 0, or I want to remove index 10. And that's going to take those indexes out. You can do other things, but the basics are these. You can add an array. Um, you can add an element to the array, and you can add a specific element. If you had an index, we could say I want to set this value. Let's say that this value is 8, and I want to put this value in the array. Now it's going to add that to the end of the array, and it's going to be 8 down here at the bottom when the programming would start. That's what would happen if you ran that off of some execution line. You can remove a specific index up here, right? And you can also remove a specific number. So if we had that value 8, we could go, oh, well, I want to remove it now. I want to look through the array and I want to find 8 and I want to remove it. And then you can check to see if that happened, if it did do the removal. And then you can also do things like get. You can get a copy of it, which allows you to get the data and display it, or grab it, or check it. And you can also get a reference, which allows you to change it. So if it's a reference, you can modify the value and it'll reflect it back in the previous class or whatever it is. If it's just a copy, you're not going to be able to modify it and have it reflect back to wherever you got it from. So that is basically arrays. Let me see. There's also element, swap array elements, things like functions for arrays. But let's just go, yeah, element. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not even going to worry about it right now. These are the basics of arrays. And there are other things, like, let's go back here and I'm just going to show you, but I'm not going to talk about them. But I'm going to show you. When you click over here in a variable, its different settings are here. And there's the single variable, the array, the list, or a set, basically, which allows you to do sets of variables, kind of like an array, but not quite the same. And then there's a map, which is basically, a map is a key variable that is associated with a value variable. If we were to change this to a map, let's move it to a map. It's going to break everything because of the way it is. A map is not going to have the same stuff. You can't use any of these with a map. A map is going to have what's going to be an integer to a boolean, something like that. So these are completely different. But you would have this value where it's like, let's compile that. It would be an integer, and then it's connected to a boolean value. And so maps are a whole different thing. I'm not going to go any further than that on those, but that's pretty much as far as I wanted to kind of discuss. But I just wanted to kind of get the idea that there are other types of variables that you can use, that you can use, or different ways of using variables. That's for people, like I said, who don't know anything about really anything about variables. You're just getting into Unreal Engine. You're trying to learn what arrays are and what stuff is. That's kind of like a little explanation of what arrays are. Now, in the next few videos, I'll be going over some other stuff that might help with those. So, anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.